Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Android emulation and emulating AAA Android games on the Retroid Pocket 5. I'm also going to give you a big tip to get your controller working properly with any game you might want to play, so stick around for that. Let's start with one of the most popular Android games, Genshin Impact. As you can see, I've got all of the controls mapped out, so I can move with the left stick, I can rotate the camera with the right stick, I can run quickly, I can jump, I can attack, I can control the game completely with the controller. I don't need to use the screen for anything at all, and I'm going to show you how to do this in any game you'd like to play. As I run around, if you look at the top corner of the screen, we're getting a completely solid 30 frames per second. Whether I'm running, attacking, it always stays very solid. This is a good device to play Genshin Impact. Our next game is PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and you can see once again we have a consistent 30 frames per second. Once again, I can control everything using the controls on the device. I never play Battle Royale shooters like PUBG or Fortnite, so I'm probably just going to embarrass myself in this video. But this is not a showcase of my gaming skills. This video is just to help you guys. So I'm hoping I can find a gun somewhere. I'm also not sure how to run, so I'm kind of just slowly walking around in a gunfight. It seems like I'm walking through the ocean. Where am I? Okay, I finally have a gun, but how do I run? I guess I can't run through this river. So far, it's just a walking simulator. Actually, it's more like a wading simulator. So I've configured buttons to jump, to crouch, and to go prone. I can also look down the side and shoot. I have all the buttons set up. So hopefully, if somebody does come near me, we can have a good gunfight. I've found a bike. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but I've got a bike! I had a bike. I got a kill! Ryan Retro is on the leaderboard! So I've programmed the right stick to control the view, but you definitely get more control by using just your finger on the screen. So for something like a first-person shooter, I probably will just use my finger on the screen when I can. But having the control is very nice. I have 8 bullets and I don't know how to get any more, so hopefully it's enough. Oh, we won. Okay, never mind. We win! Hooray! Okay, my first ever game of PUBG. Going to admit I got kind of carried in that game, but you know what? I got a couple of kills, so not too bad, and the controls felt really lovely. Very solid first impression with the Retroid Pocket 5. Let's move on to the next game. So PUBG ran at a very solid 30 frames per second throughout the whole game. Now let's move on to a more fun game, Fall Guys. At least more fun to me. I realize that might be a controversial statement. Again, we seem to be running at a solid 30 frames per second. And games like this are really nice to play with a controller, definitely much better than the touch controls. Oh, somebody's grabbing me, get off! We made it through the first round, let's move on to the next round. Okay, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing in this game. Okay, well it took me half of the round to figure out what I was meant to be doing, but I still qualified, somehow. Okay, next round, I guess we have to just try to not fall in. I'm just gonna stand here and just, oh, be careful. Ooh. Okay, nice. Okay, the final round. Avoid jumping on patterned tiles. Okay, I've never tried this one before. Not exactly sure what a patterned tile is. What just happened? Hey, leave me alone. Oh no. Well, I got to the final round, not too bad. The game runs at a perfectly solid 30 frames per second. Definitely very playable. Next, let's jump into a really popular online game, Call of Duty Mobile. And now I'll show you how I set up the controls in a way that works perfectly in every game. So jumping into the practice range, you can see I can control my movement with the left stick. I can look around with the right stick. I can use the left trigger to look down the sights. Depending on the game, you can use the right trigger to shoot the gun. But in this game, it automatically shoots for you. We can also use buttons to reload, we can use buttons to jump and crouch, we can use buttons to change weapons. I've set up the buttons to do everything I'd usually do when playing Call of Duty on a console. So, how did I do it? I'm now going to run you through this. So what I'll do first of all is I'll erase all of my controls and start again with you. When you're using the Retroid Pocket 5, if you swipe down from the top and move over one page, you'll see floating icon. You need to turn this on. Then you'll see this very thin white bar on the right side. If you swipe in, that will give you all the controls that you need. That's also how I show the frames per second on the screen. Down at the bottom, you'll see the frames per second, as well as the temperatures and usage of various components, like the CPU and the memory. It doesn't look like it, but the FPS counter is actually a button. And if you tap on it, it will then bring the floating FPS reader onto the screen. And if you tap it again, it will turn it off. So I'll leave it on. When I come out of this menu, you'll be able to see the floating FPS. You can move it around the screen, and if you want to turn it off, you once again come back to the menu, push FPS, and it will go away. So now let's talk about how we set up these buttons. So when you swipe in from the right, you want to go to this blue button, the first one, key adapter. So tap that and you'll get this floating menu that lets you set up your key bindings. If you want to move it around, we have these blue arrows to move this around the screen. We also have a little pencil if you want to give a name to your control settings, if you want to use a few different ones. I don't do that. We also have a download button if you want to download your settings and share with other people. We have an eraser, which I'm going to use now. That's going to erase all of my button bindings. And we also have a hexagon button, which we'll talk about soon. The main buttons we're going to be focusing on are the first three. The first one is a button. The second one is the left analog stick. And the third one is the right analog stick. So first of all, let's get the left analog stick set up to move our character. This blue button here will confirm your changes. So I just erased all my buttons using the eraser. I will now confirm it, and you'll see now I have no button input at all. I have to use the screen. The buttons are not doing anything. So if we now swipe in from the right, go to key adapter, I want to grab the left analog stick control. That will be the second icon here. The first one is a button, the second one is the left analog stick. So if I just grab and drag this onto the screen, you can see here I have an L with a blue circle around it. So wherever I drag that on the screen, that will correspond to the left analog stick. So you want to line this up with the on-screen control, the one that you use to control the screen. So if I drag this over here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's just try and line up the L in the middle circle. Now, if I push the blue button to confirm, now when I move this stick, it's going to move this. So I can move this with my finger, or I can now move it with the stick. So I've now got movement, but nothing else yet. So let's get some buttons working. So first of all, I want to set up the left trigger button to be looking down the sight of the gun. So in the game, we have this crosshair icon. When we tap that, it looks down the sight of the gun. So in the key adapter, I'll grab the first option, which is a button, and I will drag that onto that crosshair icon. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now you can see that there's a blue circle around it. That means it's waiting for your input. Whatever you push will now correspond to this button. So if I push the A button and say confirm, now when I push the A button, it's going to push that area of the screen for me. So it's the same as tapping on it with my finger, but I don't want to use the A button for this. I want to use the left trigger. So we want to change that. So let's swipe in from the side, go to key adapter, and you can see that A button has a white border. If you tap on it, it will give some options we don't need to look at now. So we'll just click out of this. And now you can see the outline is blue. And again, it's waiting for input. So now I'm going to push the left trigger. And now you can see it's changed from A to L2. So this time when I push confirm, now the A button is doing nothing, and that left trigger is now allowing me to look down the sights. So I'm going to now do this for the other few buttons. We have jump, which I want to be B. We have crouch, which I want to be A. And we have reload, which I want to be Y. So once again, we repeat the same process. Swipe in from the right, key adapter, grab more buttons. We can just throw them all on now. You can see right now they are just blank. They have no assignments. So the first one over here is selected because it's blue. That is jump, so I want that to be B. I will then tap this one, which I want to be A, and then I will tap this one, which I want to be Y. Now if we again confirm, those buttons should all be working. So this one is crouch, this one is jump, and if I shoot my gun, I can now use Y to reload. So what should we do next? Well, I probably want one more button configuration to change between the knife or the gun without tapping on the screen. So I think for this maybe I'll use the bumper buttons, or perhaps even the X button. So how do we do that? Well, once again, we swipe in from the side, go to key adapter, bring over a button, push what we want it to be, bring over another button, and again push what we want it to be. Now I pretty much have all of my buttons assigned how I want them. There's only one thing left, which is control and camera movement. Now, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, so I want to give you a big tip to help you do this correctly. So if you swipe in from the right and you click key adapter, remember I said the first option is a button, the second option is the left analog stick, and the third option is the right analog stick. So we want to choose the third option and drag it into the screen. Because this is controlling camera movement, it doesn't really matter where it is. It just needs to not be overlapping another button. So I like to either keep it in the middle or keep it where I think I would usually use my finger. So maybe around here somewhere. So by putting it there and confirming, it should work perfectly, right? But as you walk around, you're going to see it really doesn't work well at all. And that's because this is not the correct configuration. If we use a different kind of game that doesn't have camera movement, it could work perfectly fine. But for a game where you specifically want to move the camera around, we need to change this configuration. This is something that trips up a lot of people, so I hope this will be helpful to you once you get your RP5. So let's swipe over from the right, go to key adapter. Now, if we tap on the right analog stick control, it will bring up this menu. By default, it is set to virtual joystick mode for games that use joysticks. But in this case, we want to control the camera movement. So we're going to change from virtual joystick mode to adjust view mode. And then when we press save and confirm, it will now be acting as we expect it to. But there is one more issue. The issue is it's a little bit too fast, especially when moving up and down. When you control the game with your finger, we're usually moving left and right, and we're not moving up and down as much. So what we want to do is slow down the up and down movement. And if you go into the settings once more by tapping on the right stick, it says here, in a shooting game, increase the sensitivity in the left and right directions and reduce the sensitivity in the up and down directions. Of course, this is all personal preference, but I have found that that really does help my experience. So the x-axis is the left and right direction. We can leave that as it is or change it to your personal taste. But for the y-axis, the up and down direction, I like to move this all the way down to the bottom, 20%. Again, it's personal preference, but when we save that, you will see I have much greater control of where I'm looking. I'm not moving up and down a lot. I'm keeping my aim fairly level to the horizon. And of course I can move up and down, but you wouldn't usually want to move up and down too much too quickly. Now that all the controls are set up, you will see overlays showing which button to press to activate each icon. That's great at first when you want to remember what the buttons are, but after a while, if you feel comfortable with all the buttons and you feel like you don't need to see these control names anymore, you can hide them. And that's where the very last button comes into play. So opening the key adapter and going to this hexagon icon, there's a couple of settings. The first one turns on a static background, but what I would suggest once you know the controls is to bring the scheme transparency all the way down to 0. Now you will see all of the icons are gone, but everything is still functioning perfectly, and you can jump into your game and control it flawlessly. When it comes to controlling the camera, it's great to have it set up on the right analog stick, but I still do prefer using the screen, because when you use the analog stick, you only have this range of motion from here to here. Whereas when you use your thumb, you've got the whole screen you can use, so you can really finely control if you move slowly or quickly. Again, that's personal preference, but it's just another tip for you guys, and I hope it's helpful. Now that we've got our controls all set up, let's jump into a game and see how they work. Let's jump into a quick game against AI, just to show how the controls work. Now you'll see getting into the real game, one thing I haven't done is I haven't mapped any controls for kill streaks. So here's a quiz for you. How can we map controls for kill streaks? So we're going to swipe in from the right again, go to the key adapter, and then move some more buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this L1 and R1 buttons. I just drag them up to the top and you'll see it says move here to delete button. So let's erase the L1 and R1 buttons. And instead, I'm just going to use the X button to switch between my gun and my knife. So now we have a few buttons available. So for the first kill streak, maybe let's choose L1. For the second one, R1. And then for the last one, what button do we have? Maybe we can click in one of the sticks, like L3 or R3. Let's say L3. Now when I confirm, I should now be able to use the kill streak. So I'll try one by one. So L1. Here it comes. Oh, Predator missile. Then we have R1. And then lastly, we can click in this stick for our last kill streak. And you can see it all works perfectly. So it's really easy to adapt on the fly and get the games running how you want them to. So that was a quick guide showing you how to set up the Android controller on the Retroid Pocket 5 to control any game you want, how you want. I hope it was helpful. If it was, please give me a like, maybe share a comment down below, and please subscribe to see another new helpful video again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye.